There is an addiction that God uses to mark those who have been chosen for a greater purpose. Carl Jung dedicated his life to deciphering this disturbing phenomenon and discovered something shocking. This addiction does not appear in medical manuals, has no rehabilitation clinics, and society does not recognize its existence. But it is there, burning inside you, consuming every thought, dominating every decision. It is a compulsion that drags you towards something you do not yet fully understand. While ordinary people live their lives in peace, you feel something different burning inside. It is a restlessness that corrodes, that disturbs your nights, that makes you question everything around you. This sacred addiction is exactly what seals your destiny. Jung called this divine neurosis, the mark of the summoned. But beware, this path demands a brutal price. Not everyone who receives the call can withstand the intensity. The crucial question is, do you recognize this addiction taking over you right now? Something inside you refuses to be satisfied. You wake up every morning with this gnawing sensation deep in your chest, like there is something missing that you cannot name. You chase success, relationships, achievements, possessions, yet nothing fills the void. This is not ordinary dissatisfaction. This is the divine hunger Jung spoke about, the relentless craving that separates the chosen from everyone else. Most people never feel this. They find contentment in simple pleasures, in routine, in the predictable rhythm of everyday life. But you are different. You have tasted something beyond the material world, even if you cannot articulate what it is. This hunger drives you to seek meaning in places others never look. You devour books, explore philosophies, question beliefs that everyone else accepts without thought. Late at night, when the world sleeps, you lie awake wrestling with questions that have no easy answers. Jung understood this hunger as the soul's way of calling you toward your destiny. It is uncomfortable because it is meant to be. Comfort breeds stagnation. This craving is designed to keep you moving, searching, evolving. God plants this addiction in your psyche because ordinary satisfaction would trap you in mediocrity. You were not made for the shallow end of existence. This hunger is proof that something greater is pulling you forward. The problem is that this craving can feel like torture. You watch others enjoy simple pleasures while you remain perpetually restless. They celebrate small victories while you feel empty, even in your greatest achievements. Friends tell you to relax, to enjoy what you have, to stop overthinking everything. But you cannot. The hunger will not allow it. It pushes you toward growth, even when you desperately want to rest. Jung called this the confrontation with the self, the moment when your ego realizes it is not the center of your being. Something deeper is in control, something that will not let you settle for less than your full potential. This hunger is actually your soul rejecting anything that does not align with your true purpose. Every time you try to satisfy it with superficial things, it grows stronger, more demanding, more painful. You might have tried to numb this feeling. Maybe you threw yourself into work, convinced that the next promotion would finally bring peace. Perhaps you sought it in pleasure, in distractions, in keeping yourself constantly busy. But the hunger always returns, often with greater intensity. That is because it is not asking to be eliminated. It is asking to be understood and followed. This sacred addiction rewires your entire existence. You cannot enjoy shallow conversations anymore. Small talk feels like torture. You cannot pretend to care about things that do not matter. Your tolerance for superficiality drops to zero. People think you have changed, become difficult, too serious. They do not understand that you have been marked by something they cannot see. The hunger also brings unexpected gifts. It makes you sensitive to truth in ways others are not. You can spot deception, shallowness, and pretense from miles away. Your intuition sharpens. You begin to see patterns in life that remain invisible to those who never develop this craving. This is the addiction, teaching you to navigate reality at a deeper level. Jung believed this hunger was actually the voice of the divine speaking through your unconscious mind. God does not send emails or text messages. The divine communicates through this inexplicable restlessness, this burning need for something more. When you feel this hunger intensify, it means you are getting closer to your purpose. When it fades, it usually means you have drifted off course. The chosen ones throughout history all carried this same affliction. They could not rest in comfort. They could not accept easy answers. Something inside them burned with questions and possibilities that tormented their peace but elevated their existence. This hunger separated prophets from priests, revolutionaries from followers, creators from consumers. It is the mark of those selected for transformation. Understanding this changes everything. The hunger stops being your enemy and becomes your compass. When it intensifies, you know you're moving in the right direction. When something temporarily satisfies it, you know you have touched something real, something aligned with your deeper purpose. This addiction becomes the internal guidance system that keeps you on the path God has laid out for you. The hunger naturally leads to separation. As this divine addiction takes hold, you begin to notice a growing distance between yourself and the people around you. This is not something you plan or desire. It happens organically, inevitably, as the calling rewires your consciousness. The conversations that once engaged you now feel empty. The activities that once brought joy now seem pointless. You find yourself standing in crowded rooms, feeling completely alone. Jung observed this pattern repeatedly in those touched by the divine. The process of individuation, of becoming who you truly are, requires a period of isolation, not because you are antisocial or broken, but because transformation cannot happen in the noise of constant social validation. You need space to hear the voice within, and that voice only speaks clearly in solitude. God uses isolation as a crucible, a sacred space where the false self can die and the true self can emerge. This loneliness cuts deeper than ordinary solitude. You can be surrounded by family and friends, yet feel utterly misunderstood. You try to share what you are experiencing, the questions burning inside you, the insights that keep you awake at night. But the words fall flat. People nod politely, but you see the confusion in their eyes. They cannot relate to what you are describing because they have never felt this particular hunger. Their lives operate on a different frequency entirely. The isolation intensifies when you realize you cannot go back. There was a time when you could engage in surface-level interactions without internal conflict. You could laugh at jokes that meant nothing, participate in activities purely for social acceptance, pretend to care about things that did not matter. But the addiction has stripped away your ability to fake it. Your tolerance for pretense has evaporated. Every inauthentic interaction now feels like betrayal of something sacred within you. People sense this change and often respond with rejection. They accuse you of becoming arrogant, detached, too serious. Old friends drift away because you no longer fit into their world. Family members worry that something is wrong with you. They want you to return to who you were, not understanding that person no longer exists. The hunger has consumed your old identity, and there is no going back to that limited version of yourself. Jung understood this isolation as necessary protection. During transformation, you are vulnerable, raw, exposed. The old structures of your personality are crumbling, while new ones have not yet solidified. In this fragile state, you need distance from the voices that would pull you back into familiar patterns. Isolation creates a protective barrier where the metamorphosis can occur without interference. God removes certain people from your path, not as punishment, but as preservation. The silence becomes your teacher. In isolation, you learn to distinguish between the voice of your authentic self and the internalized expectations of others. You discover desires and gifts that were buried under layers of social conditioning. The parts of you that were suppressed to fit in finally get space to breathe and grow. This would be impossible in constant company because the presence of others naturally activates your social programming, your learned behaviors, your masks. Strange things happen in this desert period. Synchronicities increase, dreams become vivid and meaningful, insights arrive with startling clarity. You begin to understand that isolation is not abandonment, but initiation. Every prophet, mystic, and chosen one throughout history spent time in the wilderness. Moses had his mountain, Jesus had his 40 days, Buddha had his tree. This separation from the tribe is where transformation becomes irreversible. Yet the pain remains real. Humans are social creatures. We need connection, belonging, understanding. The isolation of the chosen one creates a unique agony because you simultaneously crave connection while being unable to find it at your current level of consciousness. You are caught between worlds, too evolved for your old circles, but not yet established in new ones. This liminal space stretches you in ways that feel unbearable. Also, if you want to enter your own world and delve even deeper, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. The isolation brings you face to face with something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: profound suffering. This is not the pain of a broken bone or a failed relationship. This is existential pain, the kind that questions everything you thought you knew about yourself and reality. Jung called this the dark night of the soul, and it is absolutely essential to your transformation. God uses this pain like a blacksmith uses fire, heating your soul until it becomes malleable enough to be reshaped into something stronger. Every chosen one must pass through this crucible. The pain strips away illusions you did not even know you were carrying. Beliefs about who you are, what you deserve, what life owes you, all of it gets burned away in this fire. You face parts of yourself that terrify you. The shadows you have been running from your entire life suddenly surround you with nowhere to hide. This is when most people break, when they either surrender to the process or flee back to comfortable numbness. The suffering comes in waves, each one revealing deeper layers of truth. You grieve the loss of your old identity, even as you know you cannot return to it. You mourn relationships that fell away, dreams that died, versions of yourself that no longer serve you. This grief is necessary because you cannot build a new life on top of an old foundation. Everything must be torn down first. The pain is the demolition crew clearing space for what wants to emerge. What makes this suffering unique is its purposelessness in conventional terms. You are not in pain because something bad happened. You are in pain because something is trying to be born through you. Most suffering in life has an identifiable cause and a clear solution. This pain has neither. It simply exists as part of the alchemical process transforming lead into gold, transforming your limited human consciousness into something that can hold divine purpose. Jung discovered that trying to escape this pain only prolongs it. The addiction demands that you feel everything fully. Every emotion you have suppressed, every wound you have ignored, every truth you have denied comes flooding to the surface. Your psyche is purging itself of everything inauthentic. This process cannot be rushed or avoided. You must sit in the fire until the impurities burn away completely. Those who try to medicate, distract, or think their way out of this pain remain stuck in it for years or decades. The transformation happens in the depths of this suffering. You discover strength you did not know existed. Resilience builds with each wave of pain you survive. Your capacity to hold difficult emotions expands dramatically. You learn that you can endure far more than you ever imagined. This is not about becoming hard or numb. It is about becoming spacious enough to contain the full spectrum of human experience without being destroyed by it. Something shifts when you stop resisting. The moment you accept that this pain is your teacher rather than your enemy, its nature changes. You begin to see the intelligence behind it, the precision with which it targets exactly what needs to die within you. Every painful experience is actually removing an obstacle between you and your destiny. The suffering is not random. It is surgical, cutting away everything that prevents you from embodying your true purpose. People who have not experienced this cannot understand it. They offer solutions that miss the point entirely. They suggest therapy, medication, positive thinking, as if this were ordinary depression or anxiety. But this pain exists on a different plane. It is the birth canal through which your authentic self enters the world. Fighting it only makes the labor longer and more difficult. Surrendering to it allows the birth to happen naturally. Jung observed that those who emerge from this dark night are fundamentally altered. They carry a depth that others lack. Their eyes hold wisdom earned through suffering. They speak with authority that comes from having died and been reborn. This transformation cannot be faked or learned from books. It only comes through direct experience of psychological death and resurrection. The pain is the price of admission to a higher level of consciousness. The addiction intensifies during this period because your soul knows what is happening even when your mind does not. That hunger you felt from the beginning was always leading you here, to this moment of complete surrender. Everything you tried to fill it with was preparation for this. The void had to become unbearable before you would finally stop trying to fill it with anything external and turn inward to face what was really there. As the pain reshapes you, something else begins to emerge. A calling so strange, so improbable, that you question your own sanity. This is not a gentle whisper suggesting you pursue a hobby. This is a thunderous demand that you step into something that makes no logical sense. Jung called this the confrontation with the numinous, when the divine breaks through into ordinary consciousness with such force that it shatters your rational mind's ability to make sense of reality. The calling often appears as an obsession. Suddenly you cannot stop thinking about a particular idea, vision, or path. It invades your thoughts during the day and your dreams at night. You try to dismiss it as fantasy, but it grows stronger. You attempt to be reasonable, to consider practical concerns like money and security and what people will think. But the calling does not care about any of that. It demands everything, offers no guarantees, and will not leave you alone until you respond. What makes this especially difficult is how insane it sounds when you try to explain it. You might feel called to leave a successful career, to pursue something with no clear income. You might feel compelled to speak truths that will cost you relationships and social standing. You might receive visions of creating something that does not yet exist, that nobody is asking for, that seems impossible with your current resources. When you share this with others, their reactions confirm your fears. They think you are having a breakdown. They urge caution, practicality, realistic thinking. Jung understood this as the ego's confrontation with the self, the moment when your limited personality comes face to face with the totality of who you really are. The self is vast, unlimited, connected to something far greater than individual survival and comfort. When it speaks, it does not consider mortgages or retirement plans. It only knows purpose, destiny, the role you came here to play. The ego experiences this as madness because it threatens everything the ego values: safety, predictability, control. Throughout history, every person who changed the world appeared insane before they proved successful. Noah building an ark when there was no rain. Moses demanding freedom when there was only slavery. Every prophet, artist, inventor, revolutionary heard a calling that defied common sense. They proceeded anyway, driven by an inner certainty that transcended logic. This is the signature of a divine calling. It makes no sense to anyone else, often makes no sense to you, yet you know with absolute certainty that you must follow it. The addiction reaches its peak intensity here. That hunger that has been building throughout your journey becomes focused on this one specific thing. You become obsessed, consumed, unable to think about anything else for long. People worry about you, you worry about yourself, but the calling will not release its grip. It has chosen you. And now you must choose whether to answer or spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been. Doubt attacks relentlessly during this phase. Your rational mind presents every logical reason why this is a terrible idea. Fear paints vivid pictures of failure, humiliation, financial ruin. Your inner critic reminds you of every past failure, every inadequacy, every reason you are not qualified for this calling. These voices are not trying to protect you. They are the death throes of your old identity fighting to maintain control. Jung taught that the calling always asks for what seems impossible, because that is exactly the point. It must be impossible for your current self to accomplish. If you could achieve it with your existing knowledge and abilities, it would not require transformation. The calling is designed to drag you into becoming someone new, someone capable of what currently seems beyond reach. God does not call the qualified. God calls the chosen and then qualifies them through the journey. The moment you commit, even with trembling hands and uncertain heart, something shifts. Not externally at first. The shift happens inside. A strange peace settles in despite the chaos. You still have no idea how this will work out, but the internal war ends. You have aligned yourself with something greater, and that alignment brings a sense of rightness that transcends circumstance. This is surrender, not to defeat, but to destiny. Synchronicities begin appearing with increasing frequency. The right people show up at the right time. Resources appear from unexpected places. Doors that were locked suddenly open. This is not magic, it is alignment. When you finally stop fighting your calling and start moving toward it, the universe responds. Jung called this the transcendent function, when conscious commitment to your path activates unconscious forces that support your journey. Following the calling demands a sacrifice that few anticipate. You must die, not physically, but psychologically. The person you have been, with all their habits, beliefs, identities, and attachments, cannot continue into this new chapter. Jung spoke of this as the process of death and rebirth, the necessary ending that precedes every true beginning. This is perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the entire journey because it feels like annihilation. Your old self clings desperately to survival. It knows what is coming and will fight with everything it has. You might find yourself sabotaging your own progress, creating drama and problems that pull you back toward familiar patterns. You might experience intense fear, grief, or rage as your former identity recognizes its approaching end. This is normal, this is necessary. The old must be cleared away completely before the new can take its place. Everything that defined you begins to crumble. The roles you played, the masks you wore, the stories you told yourself about who you are, all of it dissolves. You might wake up one morning and realize you no longer recognize yourself. The things that used to matter feel meaningless. The achievements you once prided yourself on seem hollow. The version of you that others knew and expected has vanished, and you have not yet become whoever comes next. This in-between state is excruciating. You are neither who you were nor who you are becoming. You exist in a liminal space with no solid ground beneath your feet. Jung called this the nigredo, the blackening, the stage of alchemical transformation where everything must first turn to darkness before it can become light. Many people get stuck here, caught between death and rebirth, unable to fully let go of the past, yet unable to step into the future. The death requires you to release attachments that feel like they are part of your identity. Perhaps you must let go of the need to be seen as successful, intelligent, good, worthy. Maybe you must release your attachment to being liked, understood, or approved of by others. These attachments are not who you really are, but losing them feels like losing yourself because you have identified with them for so long. Relationships die during this phase with painful frequency. People who were part of your old life cannot make sense of your new one. They want you to go back to being who you were. When you cannot or will not, the relationships end. This is one of the hardest parts of the death process. You mourn these losses even as you understand they are necessary. Some people are meant only for certain chapters of your life. Trying to force them into new chapters creates suffering for everyone involved. Your old dreams must die as well. The future you imagined for yourself, based on who you thought you were, becomes irrelevant. New visions emerge, but they bear no resemblance to your previous plans. You must grieve the loss of those old dreams before you can fully embrace what is actually trying to emerge. This grief is real and valid. Even when dreams no longer serve you, saying goodbye to them hurts. Jung emphasized that this death cannot be partial. You cannot negotiate with destiny, keeping the comfortable parts while sacrificing only what seems expendable. The calling demands total transformation. Every corner of your being must be touched by this death. Anything you try to protect, any part of your old self you attempt to preserve, will eventually be taken anyway. The addiction to your purpose will not allow you to remain half-transformed. Strange liberation comes with complete surrender. When you finally stop fighting the death of your old self, when you allow it to happen fully, you discover something unexpected. What you thought was dying was never really you. It was just layers of conditioning, programming, and false identity. Beneath all of that, something essential remains. Something that was always there, waiting to be uncovered. Your true self emerges from the ashes of your false self. This is when you understand why the pain was necessary, why the isolation could not be avoided, why the calling seemed like madness. Everything was leading to this moment of complete transformation. The person who started this journey could never have fulfilled the calling. They had to die so that someone capable could be born. This death is not punishment, it is preparation for resurrection. From the ashes of who you were, something new emerges. This is not improvement or development, this is rebirth, the emergence of an entirely new being. Jung called this the birth of the self, when your true nature finally breaks free from the prison of false identity and steps into the light. Everything you have experienced, every moment of hunger, isolation, pain, madness, and death has been preparing you for this awakening. You see reality differently now. The veil has lifted. Patterns that were invisible before become obvious. You understand things without knowing how you understand them. Your intuition operates at a level that seems impossible to explain. This is not because you have learned new information. It is because you have become someone capable of perceiving what was always there, but invisible to your previous consciousness. The addiction has finally fulfilled its purpose by transforming you into the person who can fulfill your calling. The hunger that drove you transforms into clarity of purpose. What once felt like torture now feels like fuel. That restless craving has been alchemized into focused intention. You know what you are here to do with absolute certainty. Doubt still appears, but it no longer has power over you. You have died and been reborn. What remains is unshakable commitment to the path laid out before you. This is how God seals your destiny, by transforming you into someone who cannot possibly do anything else. Your relationship with suffering changes completely. Pain no longer breaks you because you understand it as information, as guidance, as the friction necessary for growth. You welcome challenges that would have destroyed your former self. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because you trust the process. You have been through the fire and emerged transformed. Now you know that every difficulty is actually an invitation to expand, to evolve, to become more of who you really are. The isolation that once felt like punishment becomes chosen solitude. You need time alone now to connect with the source of your power, to listen to the inner voice that guides your decisions. You have learned that your greatest insights come in silence, that your deepest truths emerge in stillness. You no longer fear being alone because you are never really alone. You carry connection to something vast within you at all times. New people enter your life during this phase. These are not random encounters. They are soul-level connections, people vibrating at your new frequency. You recognize each other instantly. There is no need to explain yourself because they already understand. They have been through their own version of this journey. You form bonds deeper than anything you experienced before because they are based on truth rather than social convention or mutual pretense. Your gifts finally have space to express themselves fully. Talents and abilities that were dormant or suppressed throughout your old life suddenly become accessible. Creativity flows without effort. Ideas arrive fully formed. You accomplish in hours what would have taken days before. This is not because you are working harder. It is because you are finally aligned with your authentic self, and that alignment removes all internal resistance to your natural expression. Jung understood this as the moment when the individual becomes who they were always meant to be. Not an improved version of who they were, but something completely new. The caterpillar does not become a better caterpillar. It transforms into a butterfly, a being that shares no resemblance to what came before. This is the awakening, when you fully inhabit your destiny and understand that everything that happened was necessary to bring you here. The calling that seemed like madness now makes perfect sense. You can see the thread connecting every experience, every relationship, every joy and heartbreak. Nothing was wasted. Everything served the transformation. The addiction that drove you was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to remake you. God planted this hunger in your soul, knowing exactly where it would lead and who you would become at the end of the journey. Your impact expands without effort now. People are drawn to you, sensing something different, something real. You do not need to convince anyone of anything. Your presence alone communicates truth. This is the mark of someone who has completed the journey, who has been through the fire and emerged as pure gold. You carry authority that comes not from titles or credentials, but from authentic transformation. The destiny is sealed not through external achievement, but through internal alignment. You have become the person capable of fulfilling your purpose. The rest is simply walking the path that has opened before you. There will be challenges ahead, moments of doubt, times when the old fears resurface. But you are no longer the person who would be stopped by those things. The awakening has made you unstoppable, not because you are powerful, but because you are aligned with something infinitely more powerful than yourself. This is how the addiction seals your destiny. It consumes everything that is not truly you, burns away every false layer, and reveals the diamond that was always hidden beneath the coal. The hunger, the isolation, the pain, the madness, the death, all of it was the refining fire. What emerges is not who you were trying to become. It is who you always were beneath the conditioning and programming, your authentic self, finally free to fulfill the purpose for which you were born. The addiction was never the problem. It was the solution, the divine tool used to carve away everything standing between you and your destiny. Now you stand awakened, transformed, ready to become the instrument through which something greater expresses itself in this world.